Hi, hello, good afternoon. Welcome back to the lecture series on international business dynamics. So, my name is Professor Simha. So, in this session, I'm going to discuss ethical issues and corporate social responsibilities towards the multinational organizations in international business. Dear friends, did you hear the word CSR? CSR means corporate social responsibility. The commitment of business to contribute to sustainable economic development, working with employees, their families, the local community and society at large to improve quality of life in the society. So this is the definition given by World Business Council on Sustainable Development. Friends, operating a business in a manner that meets or exceeds the ethical, legal, commercial and public expectations that society has of business, because business is being undertaken in the society itself. So now let's have a look on. There are 4 dimensions of CSR. So these are the tools with which the CSR activities will be undertaken. Number 1, economic responsibility of a business to produce goods and services to earn profit. That is the motive of international business, motive of any MNC in the host country to earn profit. So that is the economic point of view. Then legal responsibility that MNC is having while doing the business operations in host country. Of course, on one hand, so the MNC has to earn profit. That is one part. But at the same time, they conduct the business operations within the confines of the law of the land in host country. Ethical responsibility, license to operate. Ethically, the business will be doing the operations in the host country with license. Discretionary responsibility. This philanthropy is arguing that is the discretionary responsibility of the international business enterprise in the host country. So these are the 4 dimensions of the business towards the corporate responsibility. Now, so let's understand the argument for corporate social responsibility of an MNC. To fulfill society's needs or expectations, it should do so for a very pragmatic reason, because the business is having the operations to make profit in the society itself. It is obviously the society's needs has to be taken care. Number 2, a social responsibility role should be undertaken in order to prevent some public criticisms, discourage the further government involvement or regulations. So this is a defensive approach designed to offset possible government actions. See, if the business is not having some responsibility and role towards the people in the society, obviously there will be public criticisms. Almost all the governments of today are welfare governments. so that they have to listen to the public. In turn, what they do, the government is making certain strict regulations towards the MNCs. In order to avoid that, the MNC has to have certain responsibility towards the society in the host country. Thirdly, business must realize that society is a system of which businesses are a part. So therefore, they should have some responsibility towards the society. CSR is in shareholders' interest. In the long run, the shareholders are nothing but they are the part of the society. And a poor social responsibility that leads to poor management to some investors. If they are not having responsibility towards the society in which they have business operations, that leads to they will be having poor management in that. Obviously, the investors will be hesitating and they suspect the business to invest in their shares. Business must realize that the social problems can become opportunities and can lead to the profit. It's very well known. When the business is contributing something to have the clean environment, so indirectly that will be benefited for the MNC, so that they could able to earn profit. If the pollution is being taken place because of the business operations, one or the other day, it will indirectly affects the business operations in the host country. With regard to the social responsibility matters, business should take a long as opposed to a short run view. Number 8. Corporations must be concerned with the public image and the goodwill generated by responsible social actions. So it is the responsibility of the business to solve the social problems in which they have business operations. Preventing is better than curing. It is better to take proactive stance than the reactive one. The corporate people are also interested in social matters. So with this, we came to know that there are some experts or economists who are arguing the MNC or corporations, multinational organizations, global companies, they should have some responsibility towards the society at large. There are some arguments against CSR of MNCs. Profit maximization is the major goal of the almost all the MNCs. And responsible to the shareholders, they have to give good return for the shareholders, for the investors, not for the society. And social policy is the jurisdiction of the government. The government is there to look after the social welfare, social matters. But according to the argument, the MNC not at all concerning the social policies in which they have the business operations. Business lacks training in take up the social issues and tackle them. So therefore, even they have lack of skills which are necessary to carry out the social programs. For that, the governments and local governments, local self-governments are there to look after all the social issues. They have trained and skills they have. They will be taking care of those social issues. And social responsibility is viewed by some as another excuse to let the big business increase its power. So whenever they are increasing the power, that results the business will be developing. When the business will be developing, employments will be created. Once employment opportunities are created in the host country, that's enough as a part of the business operations. So it is the duty indirectly that's being fulfilled by the MNCs in the host countries. Business involvement in social matters increases. They do not have time to look after the business operations. There is no acknowledged source of reliable guidance and policy for business towards social responsibility question. As institutions in the society, business corporations cannot be held accountable for those actions in a way sufficient to satisfy the demands of the society in which the business is involved. There is divided support in the business community for social involvement, and as a result, there is unlikely to be very satisfactory treatment of social issues by the business concern. The Economist article says that enlightened self interest and ethical conduct work well together. So then only there will be cooperation between the government and as well as the business to look after the social issues in the host country. So this is all about the argument against CSR by the MNCs in the host country. Now let's move on to the business ethics. The term ethics is derived from the Greek word ethos, which refers to character or customs or accepted behaviors. The Oxford Dictionary states that ethics is a moral principles that governs a person's behavior or how an activity is conducted. As far as business ethics are concerned, now what is business ethics? Business ethics refers to a code of conduct which businessmen are expected to follow while dealing with others. Code of conduct is a set of principles and expectations that are considered binding on any person who is a member of a particular group or society. The alternative names for code of conduct are code of ethics or code of practice. What are the ethical issues in international business? Business ethics are accepted principles of right or wrong governing the conduct of business people. Now let's understand what are the ethical issues in international business. Again, this is very important aspect for the examination point of view. Dear students, don't forget and study again and again thrice and make a note of these points and remember all those points. It will be easy to write the examination well. Now let's begin with understanding the ethical issues in international business, employment practices and ethics. The conditions in the host country may be much inferior to those in the multinational companies in their home nation. Many may suggest that pay and work conditions need to be similar across nations, but no one actually cares about the quantum of this divergence. 12 hours work days, minimal pay, and difference in protecting workers from toxic chemicals. So these are the things which are very common when we do the business in the host countries, especially the developing nations. So they are very much concerned about these aspects, activities. Number 2, human rights. The basic human rights are still denied in many nations. Freedom of speech, association, assembly, movement, freedom from political repression, etc. are not universally accepted. Example, South Africa during the days of white rule. Apartheid was the discriminative policy. It was practiced. It has lost It has lost it till 1994. Another ethical issue in international business is environmental pollution. When the environmental regulations in the host nations is much inferior to those in developed nations, especially the home nations for that particular MNC, ethical issues may arise in the host country. Many nations have firm regulations regarding the emission of pollutants into the nature, the dumping activities of a business, and use of toxic materials and so on. Especially developing nations may not be so strict, and according to critics, sorry, developed countries may not be strict in accordance with the critics. It results in much increased level of pollution, especially in the developing nations, because multinational business organizations, they have the business operation in the host country. If the host country is a developing one, and there must be strict regulations, nowadays the developing countries are following. But such regulations, strict regulations, may not be there in their home nations for that particular MNC. Corruption, again, is another political issue, ethical issue. International businesses often seem to gain and have gained financial and business advantage by bribing those officials in the host country, which is clearly unethical activities of the business part. Corruption in Japan. In 1970, Carl Cochin, an American business executive who served as the president of Lockheed Corporations, paid to $12.5 million to Japanese agents and government officials to sell Lockheed's TriStar jet to all Nippon Airways. After the case was discovered, US officials charged Lockheed with falsification of its records and tax violations. Even the agitations were also raised in Japan as well. The ministers who took the bribe were also charged there, and one committed suicide. It even led to the jailing of Japanese Prime Minister on those days. The Japanese government fell in disgrace, and the Japanese citizens were also outraged. Cochin had, without doubt, engaged in unethical behavior in Japan. Moral obligations. Some of the modern philosophers argue that the power of MNC brings with it the social responsibility to give resources back to the society, because the society in which they are doing business, so they will be benefited from the society's resources. It might be human resource or natural resource, whatever it may be. So therefore it has to contribute something for the society back too. Now let's have a look on the code of conduct for MNCs. The United Nations list 10 major principles that are recognized by the international declaration and agreements that have been developed in three main organizations: the UN, the ILO, and organizations of economic countries development. So these are the three international bodies where the international declaration has been passed regarding code of conduct for MNCs. These main principles comprise the US Global Compact, which covers the four main areas like human rights, labor standards, environment, and anti-corruption. The 10 principles of UN Global Compact, so that are: businesses should support and respect the protection of internationally proclaimed human rights wherever they have the business operations in the host country. whatever the declarations of human regarding human rights, labor stand, etc., passed by international organizations, so they have to respect. Businesses should take sure that they are not complicit in human rights abuses. Businesses should uphold the freedom of association and effective recognition of the right to collective bargaining of the employees in the host country consent. Businesses should uphold the elimination of all forms of forced and compulsory labor in the host countries. Businesses should uphold the effective abolition of child labor, and businesses should uphold the elimination of discrimination in respect of employment and occupation in host country. Businesses should support precautionary approach to environmental challenges in the host countries. So they have to contribute something. They have to take care of the environment in which they have the business operations. Businesses should undertake the initiatives to promote greater environmental responsibility. Businesses should encourage the development and diffusion of environmentally friendly techniques. So that should be evolved and implemented in the host country region. Businesses should work against corruption in all its terms, including extortion and bribery. And these are the other two slides, so which could be referred to have higher learning. Okay, so this is what the CSR and the ethics and code of conduct for the MNCs. Okay, thank you very much. Have a good day.